Freelancing can be a very daunting way to earn money. Maybe you're a recent graduate, maybe you're about to start freelancing, or maybe you're considering it as a career move. In this series of videos, we're going to be looking at 5 key areas of freelancing. Running yourself as a business of one, where do you find work and how do you conduct yourself on social media? How do you set your rates? What do you charge? Invoicing, how do you set them up, and what's the other key paperwork that you need? Lastly, we'll be talking about tax. So learn from my experiences, get some useful tips and tricks that you can use right away to have a much better experience as a freelancer. Welcome to my Freelance Survival series. So in this video number 1, we're going to be thinking like a business. You're a business of one, and it is time to start thinking that way. Right, before we get into that in much more detail, it's important that you ask yourself, have you done any freelance work yet? And by freelance work, I mean work that has been commissioned. That could be off websites like Etsy, or it could be through a network, it could be from friends, or it could be from a client. Are you registered as self-employed? Did your employers or the client pay your tax? Did you put money aside for tax and other things such as your national insurance? And also for your recent graduates out there, your student loan contributions? Did you invoice and were you paid on time? The reason why I want you to ask those things is because that will give you a different gauge of where you are right now. If you have been doing freelance work, but you can't say if your employer's paid your tax for you and you're not 100% sure and you're not yet registered as self-employed, I think you need to go and do further research right away. Look into the different information on your government's website. Look into being self-employed, because I would advise that if you've already started doing work, you need to be registered as self-employed in most countries. You need to be putting money aside for tax because you will need to be completing a tax return. So it's something you should think about right away. Stop watching the videos, go and research, then come back. Okay, so once you've done that and you've got an idea of your situation, if you are yet to start freelancing, here's some advice for you, especially if you're considering a move to somewhere like London to start freelancing there. What I recommend you do is work out 3 months worth of expenses. And I say this because I know plenty of people who did this, plenty of people who have only just got security and found work at the very end of the 3rd month. So it's really important you work out 3 months worth of expenses and then you begin to save. Once you have that 3 months worth of expenses, so rent, bills, food, I'm not talking nights out or anything like that, it's just the essentials to live somewhere. It doesn't have to be London, it can be anywhere. Then become self-employed. Then start that journey. I didn't do this and I wish I had, because you will need it for months when there's no work. Maybe someone doesn't pay you on time. A landlord will not take promise of payment as payment. You need to give them money. So you will need to have, and the same goes for a mortgage and a bank, you need to have some backup. So if you can, avoid what I did and going into it straight away, build up some security, and 3 months worth of expenses is a great way to look at it, because I know plenty of people who it took them 3 months to find a secure job when moving to somewhere like London, or that gives you 3 months worth of not getting paid in dry times. There will be times in the creative industry, especially in film, if you're looking to become a runner or a trainee, there are times of the year when there is less work. There are times of the year when there's more work. So you need to balance that out, and you need to start thinking smartly around that. You don't have to do that. It's something I wish I'd done. It's something a lot of people have advised. It often comes up in a lot of talks I go to about freelance. It seems to be a very generic, smart thing to do. Saving up 1 month's worth is better than nothing. Saving up a year's worth, that's incredible. But I think 3 months is a really smart thing to do. And look at rents, be aware of them. This could be thousands of pounds that I'm suggesting you save up before you become a freelancer. But you don't have to. And it doesn't matter if you haven't, you're just building up security. And you need to think about that and start building up security as a freelancer with your earnings. Now, you may already be a freelancer. You may be a recent graduate, but you've already started on that process. So let's start thinking about the next steps. You are a business of one. I've mentioned that a few times, but I think it's really important to start thinking that way. You are a business. You're not just you happen to be selling a service or art or whatever it is. You are a business. It needs to make profit. It needs budgets. All those things you hear people in business talking about need to be considered by you. Paperwork is your best friend. You need a paper trail. You need agreements out on paper. If you have a phone call with someone, write an email right away confirming everything to the person you've just spoken to, because a phone call or a verbal agreement is no use to you unless you've got something on paper, even if technically a verbal agreement is legally binding. But how will anyone know unless it's down on paper? And by paper I also mean virtual emails and such, or whatever. Just have some paper trail, and it should be professional. You should be using emails. Don't just use direct messages and instant messenger, okay? Be clear, be professional, use emails at this stage. Keep every single receipt. Later we'll talk about tax and we'll touch on accountants. You can find accountants where you just give every single receipt to and they'll deal with it, or you can keep receipts and begin to log them and prepare them yourself. It's important because when doing tax, you can claim back expenses against your earnings. You spend money as a business. That is not therefore going to create profit. I've bought equipment. I'm using that equipment now. That has been bought by the business that is me as a freelancer, Jack Shelbourne Cinematography. This should be for travel, your fuel for your car, food, drink, coffees, stationery, stamps, printer ink, paper, but it must be stuff for your business. You must be able to prove, if asked, that that was used for your business, that that travel was used for their business, that trip on the tube was part of your business. It's really important that you're not just shoving everything in there. It can't be your weekly shop. It can't be alcohol. It should be the food you've used for lunch on a job or when working. When you're a freelancer, just trying to find work sat at home is your job. It is working. Okay, but I strongly advise when it comes to things like this, you do seek professional advice. Okay, but it is important that you do this. It is a business expense, and that is just part of daily life when it comes to being a freelancer. So thinking like a business, have a budget. Start to work out what you need to earn. If you're going to buy equipment, have a budget, have a yearly budget, have projections. I have spreadsheets with all of my invoices on, when they've been paid, how much tax is calculated from them, what the expense is calculated, are they overdue, when they're due. That type of organization is really, really important. Have a very smart file structure on your computer with all of your invoices in, your accounts, your tax, project confirmations. But starting to be organized is really, really, really important for you. Any time that you can cut out being disorganized, looking for things, so you know where things are, that's improving your business. It's improving your time management. It means you're focusing on the important stuff. In the end, you want to be creating great content. You want to be out filming stuff. You want to be out taking pictures. You want to be creating wonderful graphics on your computer. You don't want to be dealing with spreadsheets, and you don't want to be dealing with scanning in receipts. So as soon as you spend some money of a receipt, take a picture of it, put it in a folder. Loads of people have cloud drives now. Make a cloud drive for your accounts. So don't stretch yourself when it comes to the budgets. Work to it and be reasonable. Okay, you're not probably going to be turning over £1 million in your first year. If you do, well done. Make a video. Tell me how you did it. Think of your equipment as an employee. Would you have an employee that has done nothing for 6 months? Would you keep them? If you have equipment that's sat on the shelf doing nothing, why are you keeping it? It's one of the reasons why I started this channel, because I had equipment that was starting to just lie around, like this camera. I wanted to utilize it to do something, to create. You don't need to be just creating for a client. Stock footage and stock assets is a great way to diversify your income. There are websites such as Pond5. That's one that I used. I'm not endorsed by them. That's just one that I've used because it's very simple just to upload your work, tag it, and it's there available. And there's different structures of how you earn from that, depending on how much work you've got on there and how successful it is. And then there's other bigger companies right up to like the huge giants such as Getty Images. If you're a photographer, camera operator, graphic designer, motion graphics artist, if you aren't working for a day, no, let me rephrase this. You need to structure your time properly. If you aren't working for a client that day, you need to spend some of that time of that day looking for work, Not just sitting around waiting for it. You need to be going out and looking for it, ringing people, emailing, researching different clients. Then you need to spend time creating stuff for stock. You could structure your week, so perhaps you spend a day a week looking for work, then a day out filming or taking photographs or making stock. And you need to spend time on your branding and running of your social media and also things like websites to make sure that's working for you. Or you could be doing this. You could be making content. You could be educating, sharing stuff, or sending out your ideas. But what you shouldn't ever be doing is spending a day sat doing nothing or a day sat just watching Netflix, unless it's research. And of course, you need breaks. You must take time off. But you shouldn't just sit there saying, right, I've put all my stuff out on some portfolio website, done, the work's going to come to me. No, you need to be looking for it. We can talk about that in the next video. And you also need to be thinking about your equipment, about what you've got and trying to monetize it. So take that camera out, shoot stock footage. Think about what's around you. Think about what you could be filming. Think about what's going on right now in the world. How can you be filming things that could be used by news shows, by magazine shows, or different online content creators? And the same with creating graphics. Create graphics that represent what's happening now, because people want that. People will want different things that they can buy, drag and drop. You might not have thought about it before using stock if you were a student or if you're new to the creative industries, but stock footage, images, graphics are a staple of the corporate and commercial world, and they're used in the film industry as well. Films have stock footage in, they have stock images in, and people can pay a lot for that. You can start getting a lot of money if you've got the right stuff, and there are people out there who spend their whole careers just going out and creating stock footage and stock images. And they spend a lot of money traveling, or they spend a lot of money booking out a studio, hiring actors, because they know that that is going to make a return for them. And that's their career. So think about what you have access to and how can you make that become a revenue stream alongside normal client-based work. I just want to make a little note here about being social media smart and savvy. It is vital that you are aware of what you put out on social media, that it is there, it is viewable by employers. You shouldn't be using things like Twitter for just normal conversational stuff between friends when it comes to being unprofessional and complaining about the lack of work, complaining about poor clients, complaining about things that people have asked you. Put that behind a wall. Lock up your profile. If you are unlocked and you're forward facing, and even then clients talk, people talk, it might filter out there. Have a personal account if you wish, and then a business account, and run things that way. But really do think about what you're putting out there. People will look at your Twitter, they will look at your Instagram, and they'll look at Facebook. They'll look at these different platforms to get an idea about you. And if you spend the whole time moaning, that's negative. That's not what you want to be portraying. I'm not trying to say lock up and don't have a personality, but just think about it. Impulse sharing on social media can be the difference between getting a job and not. And you need to start being really professional about everything to do with you, because you are a brand. So you can get a Facebook profile, lock it up. You can get a Twitter profile, lock it up. Do what you want on there. Choose who follows you, complain about clients, whatever. But be mindful of what you're doing on your forward-facing stuff. People do see it, and it is really, really important. But you do need to have a presence on social media. It's unavoidable now. You need a good Instagram. You need to have Twitter to have your opinions out there, or just be able to share information. And I think something like this, a YouTube channel, is very useful to share your work. Vimeo is also great. There's lots of different channels. There's lots of different ways to do it. But have your work out there. Have your content out there. But make sure it's positive. Make sure it's sharing what you're about. Make sure you're putting everything you want clients to see out there so that they hire you, because it can be a way that people find you. I know plenty of people who've had great careers started by being found on Vimeo, being found on Instagram. But don't just sit tight and expect it to happen. It does take a lot of work. I'd also really highly recommend getting a LinkedIn. I never really thought of LinkedIn as useful for creative industries, but a lot of people I trust have proven me wrong. It can be very useful for networking. People do use it, and it's a great place to put your work out there and to have basically a CV out in the wild for people to find. I also highly recommend you get a website as well and have like a hub for you out there. It's so easy to do now with websites like Squarespace, even though it does cost quite a bit. Though those of you who are recent graduates, you might be able to get graduate discounts. Another thing is look into unions. There's Bec2 for film and television, and I'm not sure of any others. I know there's some for photography and there's different ones out there. The reason why you should look into them is because they offer great training. They offer some great security, great advice. There's different useful financial things such as equipment insurance and public liability insurance. These are things you might need as a freelancer, especially if you're going out to work with people. If you're putting a tripod on a street, you need public liability insurance. So look out for those things and consider them. In this video, we've gone over what it is to think like a freelancer, to think like a business of one, and start to get your mentality changed and prepared for the world of freelance. The next video is going to follow on from what I've just been talking about when it comes to social media. We're going to start talking about where do you find work? How do you find it? What is there available? And what are your approaches? We're going to expand on what I've just been talking about. Please subscribe to the channel, please give this video a like, and please in the comments let me know what you think. Let me know if there's anything you disagree with. Let me know if there's something that I've missed that is useful to everyone. A conversation on this is really, really important. And also let me know how this video has been useful to you. And most importantly, I'll see you in the next video.